The day I was diagnosed with cancer was the day my wife announced her wedding to Hollywood's latest heartthrob. Her agent asked if she should let me know. Ava's expression was pure disdain. Caleb and I have a new movie premiering. If we don't ride this wave of publicity, how am I supposed to advance my career? She'd said. As for Ethan, it's better if he doesn't know. It'll just save me the drama. I turned away and quietly made a call. Dr. Albright, about that experimental drug trial you mentioned. I'll do it. The timing. Let's schedule it for a week from now. The day my wife married that rising star, I died. But she, on the other hand, screamed for me to open my eyes and look at her as if she'd lost her mind. 1. I sat in the living room of our condo, staring at the entertainment news alerts blowing up my phone, and couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Oscar winner Ava Monroe and rising star Caleb Vance announce wedding. The ceremony will be held in 1 week. Sources say sparks flew on set. On-screen and off-screen chemistry is off the charts. Hollywood power couple Ava and Caleb take the world by storm. Ava, my wife. We've been together for 7 years, married for 3. Today was supposed to be the day she came with me to the hospital to get my test results. Looking at the headlines, I suddenly realized it didn't matter anymore. In the grand blueprint of Ava's life, I was an insignificant detail. If that was the case, then there was nothing left for me to hold on to. I stood up and dialed my old professor. Dr. Albright, I said, that new drug you mentioned before, I want to try it. Are you sure? His voice on the other end was laced with concern. Ethan, this drug hasn't even completed clinical trials. You be the first. There's a significant risk of cardiac arrest after administration. At a time like this, shouldn't you discuss it with Ava? There's no need, I said. She was getting married in a week anyway. What did my life or death have to do with her? Seeing that he couldn't change my mind, Dr. Albright sighed. All right, have you thought about when you'd want to schedule the procedure? I stared at the trending topics on my screen, one after another, and finally made my decision. 1 week from now, after hanging up, I started packing my things. I had lived in this condo with Ava for 7 years. I thought I would have accumulated a lot, but as I packed, I realized that aside from the things we'd bought together when we got married, very little truly belonged to me. And the things I had prepared with so much joy, my wedding tuxedo, our framed photos, the wedding bands, were all stuffed by Ava into the darkest corner of the closet, collecting dust. She always said she was a public figure, that she had to maintain a certain image, that it couldn't affect her career. And I truly tried to understand. 7 years of dating, 3 years of marriage, and I never once appeared in the public eye. Besides her agent, no one knew that the great actress Ava Monroe was married. It wasn't until Caleb Vance showed up that I understood. It was never about protecting her career. It was just that I wasn't important enough. I had just finished stuffing the last of my belongings into a box when Ava walked in. Her eyes landed on the pile of boxes by the door. Where are you going? She asked instinctively. Nowhere. Just throwing out some junk, I said. Oh. Her reply was cold. Then just call the cleaning service to come get it. Haven't you been feeling unwell lately? Don't strain yourself with this heavy lifting. 2. As she spoke, Ava dialed the number for the cleaning service right in front of me. Then she watched as they hauled away box after box, tossing them into the dumpster. From beginning to end, she never once realized that the so-called junk was everything I had carefully prepared for our wedding. Even after she walked into the condo and saw how empty the space was, all Ava did was rub her temples. Does it feel like a lot of stuff is missing in here? Really? I just did a deep clean, threw out some things we don't use. I tossed out a casual lie, but Ava's expression immediately tensed. She instinctively ran toward the bedroom. When she saw that the porcelain figurine she kept in the most prominent spot on her bedside table was still there, she let out a visible sigh of relief. Then, turning to see the pale look on my face, she offered an explanation. It was a wrap gift from the production team on my new film. It wouldn't be right to throw it away. But I knew perfectly well it wasn't a gift from any production team. It was from Caleb Vance. A week ago, when their movie wrapped, they went to a pottery studio and made a pair of custom porcelain figurines for each other. The one on her nightstand, a bride in a pure white dress, looked just like the woman Ava was about to become. How did I know? I had Caleb Vance to thank for adding me as a friend online. For the past year, every time I needed Ava and she was mysteriously absent, I could find the answer on his Instagram feed. I never said anything before because I trusted Ava, because I was afraid my words would damage our relationship. But now, none of it mattered. I nodded. I know, I told her. I wouldn't throw out something someone gave you. Her reaction was like I'd stepped on her tail. Her tone turned vicious. Ethan, what is that supposed to mean? Is this because I didn't go with you to the hospital to get your results today? You're a grown man. Can't you be a little more understanding? The movie just wrapped. I have to do press. I'm running myself ragged and I still make time to come home to see you. And this is how you treat me? So passive-aggressive, so jealous. I was right not to go public with our relationship. God knows what kind of stupid things you would have done. One baseless accusation after another rained down on me. I opened my mouth to say something, but found I had no words. For 7 years, to protect her career, I never dared to go with her to any public place. We'd never gone out to dinner, never seen a movie, let alone taken a vacation together. But before Ava, I was a travel blogger. The thing I loved most was documenting my life. I gave up my career for her, and in return, I got a tirade of blame. My phone suddenly rang, interrupting our conversation. She walked over to the balcony, answered it quickly, and slid the glass door shut. But from a movement of her lips, I could clearly read her words. Caleb and I have the wedding set for a week from now. Ethan? No need to tell him. He's so possessive. It'll be a mess if he shows up and makes a scene. No, really. Ethan's completely devoted to me. I can just sweet-talk him a little later. Besides, we're already married. What's he going to do? 3. Possessive. Sweet-talk. Already married. It was hard to believe these words were coming from the woman I had loved for 7 years. Even though I'd already decided to leave, a sharp, stabbing pain still shot through my heart. I crouched on the floor, trying to endure it. Ava saw me curled into a ball, immediately hung up, and rushed over. What's wrong? She asked. If you're not feeling well, you should rest. Why are you pushing yourself like this all day? By the way, what did the hospital say? You're okay, right? She finally remembered I was sick, but I no longer wanted to tell her. I kept my head down, hoping to just get through it. Ava, however, thought I was in too much pain to speak. Without another word, she pulled me up, ready to take me to the hospital. But before we even reached the door, her phone rang again. When she saw the caller ID, a smile instantly lit up her face. She let go of my arm and answered the call. Ava, I was hoping to take you to dinner tonight. Are you free? Absolutely. Where? I'll be right there. Ava's face was a blooming flower. She was naturally a reserved person and rarely smiled, but when she did, it had a special kind of charm. It was a pity that her smiles were never for me. She talked with Caleb Vance for a long, long time. So long that I, standing beside her, felt my legs go numb. Finally, she reluctantly hung up. Turning to me, a flicker of apology appeared in her eyes. Sorry, Ethan. Something came up with the film crew. It's fine. The pain's gone, I said. A palpable wave of relief washed over Ava's face. Still, she pressed a credit card in my hand. That's good. Wait, you still need to take care of yourself. You're my husband, and you'll be the father of my children one day. If something happened to you, I'd be devastated. Would she? I didn't think so. I didn't think she would be devastated by my absence. And I certainly didn't believe we had a future together anymore. Her phone started buzzing again. Clearly, Caleb was getting impatient. Ava rushed out the door, terrified of making her sweetheart wait even a second longer. I placed the card on the entryway table, turned around, and went back to the bedroom to start making a list. I had 7 days left. In these 7 days, I had to get everything in order so I could leave in peace. 4. I woke up the next morning. Ava hadn't come home. I received a text from her saying the crew had a last-minute late night, and she couldn't make it back. She told me to get some sleep and not to forget breakfast. It was a sweet message. It would have been if I hadn't seen Caleb Vance's new Instagram story. It was a picture of him and Ava having a candlelight dinner at a new, exclusive restaurant for couples. The caption read, "Someone can't handle their wine. Guess I'm on babysitting duty all night," winking face. My fists clenched, then slowly relaxed. Whatever. I already knew Ava didn't have any real feelings for me. Why was I still hoping for anything? I went out and bought a car full of gifts, then went to visit everyone who had helped me over the years. Classmates, professors, friends. Without exception, they all asked why I was suddenly stopping by. I didn't have the heart to tell them I had cancer. Terminal. That the chances of recovery were incredibly low. That was why I was going to try a new drug, even though the chance it would save me was 1 in 10,000. I just smiled and said, I'm planning on leaving for a while. I don't know when I'll be back. I figure I wouldn't see you all for a long time, so I wanted to stop by. I was grateful for my time with an actress. My own acting skills had improved over the years. At least, not a single person I visited doubted the truth of my words. Many of them even teased me. The famous travel blogger is hitting the road again. I always said you should have kept that account going. Look, all the creators from your time are huge now, with millions of followers. You gotta get back in the game. When you're famous, you can give us all autographs. I smiled and agreed to it all. No one knew that I never wanted to be a famous influencer. I just wanted to be with Ava. But that was a wish that would never come true. Taking a deep breath, I wiped away a tear and went to visit the last person on my list. The director of the group home where I grew up, Mrs. Davison. She was overjoyed to see me, though her words were playfully scolding. Ethan, you're back. You came all this way. You didn't have to bring gifts. I smiled back at her. There for the kids. A kind, warm smile spread across Mrs. Davison's face. Of all the children who came through this home, you and Ava were always the most successful and the ones who thought of us most. Not only do you send money for the kids' expenses every month, you also buy them gifts for every holiday. By the way, where is Ava? I haven't seen her in so long. Is she doing well? I opened my mouth, but I didn't know what to say. Mrs. Davison didn't know that Ava hadn't been involved with the home for a long time. The monthly donations, the gifts, they were all for me. Noticing the hesitation in my eyes, Mrs. Davison took my hand, her expression turning worried. Ethan, is everything all right between you and Ava? I looked down. My acting was still too clumsy. I could fool anyone else, but not the woman who had raised me. She grew angry and reached for her phone to call Ava, but I quickly stopped her. Grandma Jean, we're fine. Ava's just been really busy lately, so she hasn't had time to visit. Mrs. Davison's eyes were filled with suspicion. Just then, a young boy ran over, holding up a phone. Grandma Jean, look. Sister Ava is getting married, he shouted. But the groom, he doesn't look like brother Ethan. 5. I wanted to stop him, but Mrs. Davison had already snatched the phone. When she saw the wedding announcement, with Ava and Caleb Vance smiling radiantly in their engagement photo, she began to tremble with rage. Ethan, aren't you and Ava already married? Just a few days ago you told me that even without a big wedding, your love for each other was strong. What is this? I couldn't answer. Furious, Mrs. Davison tried to call Ava right then and there, but I stopped her. Seeing that I couldn't hide it any longer, I had no choice but to speak. Grandma Jean, Ava has found her own happiness. We've just separated. We can still be family. But she was livid. Bullshit. You two grew up together. I saw with my own eyes how good you were to her. How much have you given up for her over all these years? And now that she's a big star, she thinks she could just dump you? I won't allow it. Wait right here. I'm going to go get you justice. Mrs. Davison stood up in a hurry, determined to find Ava. But she had barely taken a few steps before a speeding semi-truck came barreling down the street and struck her. Blood was everywhere. I froze, my mind blank, and it was a long moment before I could react before I lunged forward. Mrs. Davison. She couldn't be saved. As they were loading her onto the ambulance, she gripped my hand, her lips moving, trying to tell me to call Ava. I did as she asked. I called Ava immediately. She picked up on the first ring, but her voice was sharp with impatience. Ethan, what the hell is your problem? Mrs. Davison raised us. You're going to use a lie like that just to get me to come back. I'm not lying. She was in a real accident. I shouted, but Ava hung up. When I tried to call back, I found that she had blocked my number. My gaze fell on Caleb Vance's Instagram. The two of them were already overseas, making the final preparations for their wedding. Of course, it was already the 6th day. Tomorrow was Ava and Caleb's wedding. It was also the day I was scheduled to receive the injection. After saying my final goodbye to Mrs. Davison, I lay in bed awake all night. It wasn't until Dr. Albright came in with the syringe that he looked at my desolate state and couldn't help but speak. Ethan, you don't look well. Maybe we should postpone this. But I insisted. No, let's do it today. The clear fluid slowly entered my body, a cold current traveling through my veins. I thought it would hurt, but it didn't. Instead, my whole body felt light, so very light. A wave of exhaustion washed over me, and my eyelids became too heavy to hold open. They slowly closed. At the same time, the heart monitor beside me let out a long, continuous beep. I heard a nurse's panicked voice. Code Blue, the patient is in cardiac arrest. But all I felt was an immense sense of peace. Goodbye, Ava. Forever. CUTTO6. Bali. Ava stood in a stunning wedding gown, the handsome Caleb Vance by her side. Her agent was next to her, giving her the latest update. The guests have all arrived, and the press is in position. Once the ceremony is over, the publicity will be perfect. It's just, Ava, are you really not going to tell Ethan? What if he finds out? Ava cut her agent off. There's no need. The wedding is about to start. If I tell him now, what if he comes and makes a scene? The movie's PR campaign is critical. We can't afford any mistakes at this stage. As for Ethan, I trust he'll understand. With that, Ava lifted the hem of her gown and walked toward the ceremony. But for some reason, with every step she took, the ache in her chest grew stronger, as if something vital was draining away from her life. She subconsciously pulled out her phone and scrolled through our chat history. The last message was from 3 days ago, her explaining that she was with Caleb getting a massage. He's probably still mad about that, she thought. After all, to get her to come home, I was willing to stoop so low as to lie about Mrs. Davison dying. Looking at my number in her blocked list, Ava hesitated for a moment before unblocking it. But to her disappointment, aside from the series of intercepted calls from yesterday, there was no other message for me. Caleb noticed Ava playing with her phone, and his eyes darkened slightly. When she was with him, she never acted like this. She was usually desperate to be stuck to his side 24/7. He walked over, wrapping an arm around her waist in a gesture of feigned intimacy. "What's wrong, Ava?" "Nothing," she denied quickly, but Caleb had already seen the string of missed calls from me on her screen. A flash of annoyance crossed his face, but his words were perfectly understanding. "Is Ethan giving you trouble again?" "Look, I know this is partly my fault, but this is our first movie together. I just want it to be a massive success. You're only one step away from being an international superstar, Ava. If it really bothers Ethan that much, I'll go talk to press right now and clear everything up." Caleb turned as if to leave, but Ava reached out and stopped him. "Don't. He'll understand," she said. "Come on, let's go get married." 7. Ava took Caleb's arm, and together they walked happily down the aisle. If only she had paid a little more attention, she would have seen the triumphant smirk on his face. The wedding went off without a hitch, but the feeling of unease in Ava's heart only intensified. Throughout the ceremony, she seemed distracted, her eyes constantly scanning the crowd of guests. Unfortunately for her, by the time the wedding was over, I had not appeared. Even her phone remained silent. Nothing happened. Ava was growing annoyed. The moment the reception ended, she called my number. No one answered. Seeing the flicker of anxiety in her eyes, Caleb felt a pang of irritation, but he deliberately spoke up. "Ethan's not picking up? He must have seen the news today about our wedding." "Ava, you wanted to give him a call? Maybe explain things?" Caleb took out his phone and dialed my number. Unsurprisingly, there was no answer. Not giving up, he tried calling from someone else's phone. Still nothing. "Ava, do you think he's actually mad? This was just for show. He's your husband. Can't he make this one small sacrifice?" Caleb's words were the spark that ignited the bonfire of Ava's anger. She violently threw her phone to the ground. "Let him ignore me. You're right, this is just for show. He and I are the ones with the marriage certificate. We're the real couple. If he can't even offer this little bit of understanding and support, then he doesn't deserve to be my husband. Perhaps to teach me a lesson, or perhaps to force me to come crawling back." Ava spent the next several weeks flaunting her relationship with Caleb, traveling to various countries. They went on dates, took pictures, went skydiving, saw musicals. All the things she had once made excuses not to do with me, she did one by one with Caleb Vance. It was only after the entire world was saturated with their saccharine displays of affection, and I still hadn't made a single move, that Ava finally realized something was wrong. Ignoring Caleb's protests, she booked the first flight back to the States. When she returned to our condo, everything was just as she had left it. Nothing had changed. Ava finally let out a sigh of relief and called out my name. But after searching the entire apartment, she couldn't find me. And along with me, all of my identification was gone too. A terrible feeling started to creep into Ava's heart. She called Mrs. Davison. The number had been disconnected. Hey, why would Mrs. Davison's phone be disconnected? Could it be that I told her about the wedding, and she was so angry that she refused to speak to Ava now? Mrs. Davison was old. She had so many health problems. How could I be so thoughtless? The more Ava thought about it, the angrier she became. She drove straight to the group home. But when she arrived, she found that the person in charge was someone new. Not Mrs. Davison, but a younger woman. Seeing her, the woman greeted her politely. "Hello, ma'am. Can I help you find someone?" "I'm looking for Director Davison," Ava said. The young woman's expression immediately clouded over. "I'm so sorry. Mrs. Davison passed away." "Passed away?" Ava's mind went blank, as if struck by lightning. Her eyes were filled with utter disbelief, but she quickly recovered. "Did Ethan tell you to say that?" she snapped. "I know I was wrong not to tell him about the PR stunt with Caleb, but does he really need to pull a prank this cruel? First he says Mrs. Davison is dying. Now he says she's dead? You tell him, if this is his way of getting my attention. It's pathetic." Ava's voice was loud, almost a shout. The young woman just looked at her with confusion before asking, "Ethan, who is that?" Ava was stunned, just as she was trying to come up with another excuse to debunk my lie. The children from the home, hearing the commotion, came running out crying. "I want Grandma Jean," one sobbed. "You're lying, teacher. Grandma Jean didn't turn into a star in the sky." "Teacher, we miss Grandma Jean so much." Children don't lie. And what's more, they were clutching a framed photograph of Mrs. Davison, a memorial photo. Ava finally started to panic. She staggered back and collapsed, fainting on the spot. When she woke up, she was in a hospital room. The young woman was there with her. She handed Ava a death certificate and a cremation permit. Seeing Mrs. Davison's name clearly printed on both documents, Ava finally accepted that she was gone. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. She began to howl, tears streaming down her face like a broken dam. The young woman spoke softly. "You're Ava, right? I heard Mrs. Davison's last wish was to see you. It's a shame we could never get through to your phone." "No," Ava denied instinctively. "My phone was on. It was Ethan. He kept lying to me. That's why I thought it was another one of his tricks. That's why I missed seeing her one last time. Where is he? Let him come see me." But the woman in front of her couldn't answer that question. Ava grabbed her phone and frantically dialed my number again. This time, the call connected, but the person on the other end wasn't me. "Are you a relative of Ethan Hayes?" a clinical voice asked. "He passed away from cardiac arrest following a failed experimental drug trial. We need you to come and handle the arrangements for his remains." 9. Ava froze. She understood every word the person on the phone was saying, but put together, they made no sense. Even though she had no strength left to doubt, her voice still trembled as she spoke. "You're joking, right? Ethan put you up to this, didn't he? Happy to be dead. He was just calling me a few days ago." The person on the other end cut her off. "I'm not joking, ma'am. Mr. Hayes is currently in the hospital morgue. If you're unable to come, we will have to proceed with disposition according to standard procedure." "Don't!" Ava screamed. The next second, she ripped the 4 from the back of her hand and sprinted towards the critical care wing of the hospital. Caleb arrived at that exact moment. Seeing Ava charging recklessly outside, he looked confused and called out, "Ava, where are you going?" "Ethan's dead. I'm going to see him." Her voice was thick with an immense sorrow. Caleb was momentarily stunned, but he quickly recovered and said, "Ava, you're overthinking this. Ethan is fine. How could he possibly be dead? This is probably just another one of his tricks to make you feel guilty and sorry for him. Just like that day at the wedding when he called and said Mrs. Davison was dying and wanted to see you one last time." "Shut your mouth," Ava shrieked, her eyes turning bloodshot as she glared at him. "Mrs. Davison is really dead. Ethan wasn't lying. I have to find him. I have to find him." Shoving Caleb out of her way, Ava used every last bit of her strength to run towards the morgue on the first floor. A confused Caleb followed close behind. When Ava reached the door to the morgue and saw the body on the gurney, covered by a white sheet, she stumbled, nearly collapsing to the floor. "Ethan," she called out, her voice raspy. But I would never answer her again. Tears fell from her eyes like broken strings of pearls. She desperately shook my body. "Ethan, I'm here, wake up. This is just a sick joke, isn't it? A punishment because I didn't tell you about the publicity stunt? I was wrong, okay? Get up and yell at me, hit me. Ethan." 10. Ava was sobbing uncontrollably, grabbing my lifeless hand and trying to slap her own face with it. But no matter what she did, my body was stiff and cold. It made no movement. Finally, a hospital staff member had to restrain her. "Ms. Monroe, please. He's gone. I'm so sorry for your loss." Suddenly, as if a switch had been flipped, Ava's gaze snapped to the medical staff beside her. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. "It was you. You killed Ethan, didn't you? He was always so healthy. How could he suddenly have a cardiac arrest? You killed him. You're an incompetent doctor." Ava kicked and bit at the staff member like a wild animal. Even when hospital security was called, they couldn't stop her frantic assault. It was my professor, Dr. Albright, who finally arrived and put an end to it, striking Ava hard across the face. "That's enough, Ava," he yelled. Ethan had stomach cancer. By the time it was discovered, it was already terminal. He had less than a month to live. As his wife, did you not even know that? Confusion flickered in Ava's eyes. Of course, she didn't know. A month ago, I told her I wasn't feeling well, asked her to go with me for a checkup. But every time, she would agree and then forget. Or maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she just had more important things to do, like going on dates with Caleb Vance. While she was having dinner, shopping, and going to movies with him, doing all the things that real partners, real spouses do, I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep through the night, relying on painkillers just to get by. And when she would come home drunk, she would complain that I hadn't cleaned the house. But the pain had made it difficult for me to even stand up. Did Ava not know any of this? No, she knew. The cups and bowls I'd broken because my hands were weak, the bottles of pills I had to take in the final stages, the hair that fell out all over the floor from the chemo. As long as Ava wasn't blind, she would have seen it all. But she chose to ignore it because I was never the most important person in her heart. Looking into Ava's bewildered eyes, Dr. Albright's face twisted with a look of profound disappointment. I knew he was feeling the injustice of it all on my behalf. Ethan's disease progressed too quickly. The cancer cells were spreading uncontrollably. He had a chance to try the experimental drug earlier, a much better chance, but he delayed it because he couldn't bear to leave you. And yet, on the day he finally went through with the trial, you were marrying another man. Ava, how could you do that to him? Each question was a dagger twisting in Ava's heart. But what was even harder for her to accept was that on the day I died, she was at her own wedding to another man. The absurd truth of it all made Ava laugh out loud. And as she laughed, she began to cry. Then, she coughed up mouthful after mouthful of blood. 11. Ava was rushed to the emergency room. Her heart rate plummeted. On the verge of death, her mind was flooded with images of me. Ava, it's our first anniversary. I bought you a present. It wasn't that expensive, just a year's salary. Not even a fraction of what you make. Ava, will you marry me? I'll be good to you for the rest of my life. Ava, are you coming home for dinner tonight? Ava, I don't want you anymore. That last sentence struck her heart like a sledgehammer. The soul-crushing pain made her eyes fly open. Ethan, don't leave me. I was wrong. But all she saw were doctors and nurses. I was nowhere in sight. The tiny flicker of hope that had ignited in her heart was instantly extinguished. Ava closed her eyes, her face ashen. Ava fell ill. She lay in bed, no different from a corpse. She threw out anyone who came to visit her. All her press junkets, her performances, everything was canceled. She no longer had the strength to deal with any of it. The career she had once been so proud of, the career she had been willing to destroy our marriage for, was now utterly worthless to her. All she did was stare at our old text messages on her phone, crying until dawn, until her agent came to see her. She was shocked to see Ava, who was now nothing but skin and bones. But she quickly sat by the bed and tried to comfort her. Ava, I know how much you're hurting, but you can't bring the dead back to life.